Hello, this is an intro to my needle felting tutorials on how to make needle felted sculptures. You may have seen my intro from my last tutorials if you have purchased a kit from me before, but I'm just going to redo this one for anybody else who hasn't. So basically I just want to give you a rundown about what needle felting is and what kind of tools you need to have to do this craft. So I'm just going to put this down here. This is a piece of foam. It's actually insulation foam. It's one of the methods, or one of the pieces of equipment that you need. You don't have to use this hard foam. You can use any sort of bedding foam or anything. Basically, you just want your needle to be able to go through into the foam. You can't poke onto the needle. You'll break your needle and it just doesn't work. So you basically want one thick enough that the needle's not going to go all the way through. I've been using this hard foam lately because I find that when I'm felting onto the foam, it doesn't stick like it does. It doesn't felt into the foam like it does with the soft bed type foam. So if you've gotten a kit from me before, you'll now get to try this new different type of foam. Don't use something like a regular old styrofoam because it'll just crumble and it'll be no good. This stuff, you can use it until, as you can see, this has been very poked into, so probably I'm going to switch it over into the smoother side. As soon as it's been poked a lot, it'll start to crumble and you'll get little bits into your piece that you're working on. There's all different types of wool that I use for needle felting. This is some carded rovings that I dyed myself, and it was processed in a wool mill, so in a carding machine, which is basically just a machine that combs the fibers into one direction, processes the fibers. You'll notice in your kits you have some really nice, evenly dyed rovings pieces which are really nicely combed and lie in one direction. They are really great for finishing. I use this for any of the details. It's a little more difficult to make a whole sculpture with something like this because it's slow. It's slow to needle felt, so it'll take you much longer. You want to use something that has a little bit of shorter fibers, which in this wool that I've given you for your core, either the white for the purple or the green for the blue and green owl. Yeah, so I've given you a mixture. The wool that you're going to use for your nest is just some raw wool that I washed very thoroughly, and it may have tiny bits of veggie matter in it, and then I dyed it the blue and the green, so that's why it still has little bits of curl in it. It hasn't been carded, so it's still in its raw form. And what else can I tell you about? The needles. There's many different gauges of needles, and they have little barbs on them. And how it works is that when you poke the wool and you drive the needle through, the barbs catch on to any of the fibers that go through and hooks them together. If you were to look at wool under a microscope, each fiber itself has little tiny hooks on it, so that when you go through, you're hooking all those together, basically matting the wool. So sculpting becomes using the needle to mat the wool and create the shape that you desire. The different gauges of needles are just different thicknesses. There's different, needles have different barbs along the needle part, where if the more barbs it has on it, the more it will hook with each poke. So for finer work, you would have less needles, or they'll be spaced differently. And people wonder if all needle felting needles are the same. There are really high quality needles out there that I personally really enjoy using. I don't think that the beginner needle felter really needs them, or rather it's kind of complicated system of which needles to use for what. So if you want to take on needle felting a little more and you're really curious and want to upgrade to different types of needles, let me know and I can point you in the right direction. I think it really helps fine-tune your work to have nice needles. And I think that's about all that we need to talk about before we get started on making your owl.